The plane rolled down the runway, the engines thundering. Soon the wheels were off the ground. The passengers inside feel the G-force taking them away from the ground. The wheels retract, and the floor starts vibrating from the mechanism. Some passengers start to drowse off to sleep, some looking at the screens in front of them, watching movies, TV shows, listening to music or playing games. The cabin is especially silent, with the occasional whisper. The faint hum of the engines in the background make the trip especially special, and at the same time unforgettable. Soon, a baby starts crying in the background, and the parent is desperately trying to hush him up without disturbing other passengers, especially on a 10 p.m. flight. Li Nao, who sat towards the back of the plane, which was unfortunately behind the crying baby, was desperately trying to sleep. He had work meetings in Singapore the next day and wanted a good night's sleep. The baby in front was keeping him awake. The piercing scream of a baby is unforgettable, and the sound starts ringing in his head, and it becomes slowly unbearable as the minutes slowly tick by. The soft ding comes and flight attendant Joe says in the microphone, "Passengers, the seatbelt sign has been turned off. You are free to move about the cabin. Meal service will commence in 10 minutes. Bill sighs a breath of relief and starts making his way to the airplane lavatory, which surprising smells of fresh flowers greet him at the lavatory, a small comfort as most airplane bathrooms reek of feces and urine. He splashes his face with cold water, refreshing himself. In the back, flight attendant Jung and Cherry staff the galley, quickly heating up the 3 different options for supper: steamed fish with vegetables, beef curry on rice, and the vegetable medley with 5 spices. The strong smells of the various spices in the curry waft through the galley, also making Jung and Cherry salivate. Their urges to eat soon stop, and they continue to quickly heat up the aluminium trays of food on the racks, rotating them through until one of the ovens clocks out and stops working. Jung, being the experienced one with ovens, hits the 5 times with his hand. It starts working again, but suddenly the strong smell of burning hits their noses. Opening the oven, they find the food unburnt, but the strong burning smell still came wafting back. It was an emergency. The oven had short-circuited and had started a minor fire in the back. They didn't know where the fire was coming from, and their repeated attempts at extinguishing it were of fail. Cherry quickly rushed to the phone and accidentally presses the wrong button and accidentally broadcasts to the cabin of the emergency in the galley. The cabin is soon in hysterics, and Cherry, aware of the problem, quickly notifies the captain, this time pressing the correct button. With the aircraft just passing Adelaide Airport, the pilots quickly direct it back to Adelaide in hopes of evacuating the aircraft. Thoughts ran through Cherry's head as she held the fire extinguisher spraying the foam in the vicinity of the smoke. She remembered her caring parents and how they supported her to become a flight attendant after dropping out of medicine. She remembered her brothers, Max and Jason, and how supportive and caring they were of her whenever she came back home from her shifts in the sky, groggy and tired. She remembered her boyfriend, Ali, who was the most considerate person in the entire world. He would always get the house ready for whenever she came back and always greeted her with a smile on his face. She remembered her 2 pet guinea pigs, Cloudy and Max, who were the cutest bunch of guinea pigs ever. They would squeak rather loudly whenever she came back as a way of greeting her. She was hoping to get out alive. Meanwhile, thoughts also ran through Jung's head as the plane faltered towards the ground like a feather, clinging onto the sides of the jump seat, and whilst putting on his seatbelt, his mind darted to his family, who were initially unsupportive of his career choice, but later supported it. He remembered his parents, especially all the fruit they cut for him after coming back on long shifts to destinations such as New York and London. He remembered the favorite places he would go to, Warburton, if he was feeling down. A walk in the forest was great for getting your mood up. He remembered his favorite beach in Fairhaven, on the Great Ocean Road, and the powerful waves that crashed on the coast. He didn't want to die on his first international trip as a flight attendant. Li Nao was feeling uncomfortable. The plane was shaking violently from side to side, and he could only hold onto the seat in front of him. His mind raced to his parents, who he sorely missed. He was going to fly out to Graz in Austria to see his parents, who had retired there after falling in love with the place. The plane shuddered from side to side, shaking violently, throwing the unfortunate who didn't wear their seatbelts, flying around the cabin, and one violently thrown into the bulkhead. His heart quickly raced to his siblings, who he only just seen a few weeks back during a layover in Hong Kong. He never properly said goodbye to as he raced back to Sydney for a business meeting. He remembered his wife, Sun Yoon, and his 3 kids, Matthew, Nick, and Oliver. He remembered his wedding day and how magical it was marrying Sun Yoon, the love of his life. He remembered the birth of his first son, Matthew, and how small and tiny he was in his arms. He remembered the first time he brought him home in his cot and dressed him up in various clothing. He remembered the sleepless nights of the baby waking up excessively. He remembered the first time he took a business trip after the birth of his first. He remembered the time when he got home and the smile of Matthew's face after coming back from Taipei for 5 days. His mind stopped wandering and brought him back to the present, on a fiery plane, which may possibly crash very soon. As the plane descended, altitude dropping each second, as the flight attendants shouted, "Brace! Brace!" the plane slowly descended into Adelaide with a big thump. As the aircraft came to a stop and the flight attendants opened the doors, everyone sliding out one by one. Li Nao was one of the last passengers to slide out, helping the elderly and young to safety. Once everyone was out, he slid out to safety, and once his feet touched the ground, without a glance back, he sprinted off into the distance to safety. Young and Cherry breathe a sigh of relief as they slide down the slide last, one by one. They arrive onto hard ground, relived that they had not perished. With one last look into the cabin, they quickly sprinted away towards safety, towards home. All was well.